Alexander Kane had seen derelicts before, but nothing like this. The Starship hung in the asteroid field like a sleeping giant, its hull scarred by centuries of micrometeorite impacts. Most salvagers would have passed it by, too old, too damaged, too far from any trade route to be worth the fuel. But Alexander wasn't most salvagers. He was desperate. His scanners had died 3 days ago. Life support was running on backup power. One more jump and his ship, the Wanderer, would be nothing more than a coffin drifting through the void. When his proximity alert pinged, somehow still functional, he'd nearly wept with relief. "Come on," he muttered, maneuvering closer. "Just need one working fuel cell, one power converter, anything." The derelict's registration codes were corrupted, but its design was unmistakable. Veltari construction, pre-collapse era, at least 800 years old. The Veltari had been the galaxy's master shipbuilders before their civilization imploded in civil war. Their vessels were legendary, part machine, part organism, grown rather than built. Alexander suited up and crossed the void between ships. The airlock opened at his touch, ancient mechanisms somehow still responsive. Inside, emergency lighting flickered to life, bathing the corridor in bioluminescent blue. "That's impossible," he whispered. Dead ships didn't wake up. He ventured deeper, magnetic boots clanking against the deck. The ship's interior was vast, easily a kilometer long. Organic conduits pulsed along the walls like veins. The architecture flowed in curves and spirals, nothing like the angular human designs he knew. In the central chamber, Alexander found her. A Veltari woman suspended in a crystalline stasis pod, her silver skin unmarred by time. Cybernetic implants traced elegant patterns across her temples and down her neck. Her eyes were closed, but her expression seemed peaceful. The pod's display still functioned, text cycling in ancient Veltari script. Alexander's translator struggled, producing fragments. Neural architect, Orla Sinvel, integration complete. Awaiting. Awaiting what? Alexander reached toward the pod. The ship answered. Every surface erupted with light. The walls seemed to breathe. Alexander stumbled backward as information flooded his visual feed, not through his helmet's display, but directly into his optical nerve. Schematics, star charts, weapons systems, propulsion configurations that shouldn't be possible. And a voice, female and crystalline, speaking flawless standard. Compatibility confirmed. New administrator recognized. Welcome, Alexander Kane. What the hell? He spun, searching for the source. I am the synthesis, designation Void Walker Mark VII. You are the first human to board me in 743 years. My previous administrator, Orla Sinvel, entered emergency stasis during the collapse. She awaits revival. Will you accept administrative privileges? Alexander's mind raced. An intact Veltari ship with a living crew member. This wasn't just salvage. This was a fortune beyond imagining. But something felt wrong. Why me? Why now? You were dying. I was dormant. We needed each other. My power reserves reached critical minimum 18 hours ago. Your arrival provided the gravitational wake necessary to trigger my emergency protocols. Will you accept? He should have said no. Should have backed away, returned to the Wanderer, called this in to the Salvagers Guild. But Alexander looked at the woman in the pod, Orla, and thought of all the years he'd spent alone in the dark. Yes. The ship sang. 3 months later, Alexander stood in what had been the observation deck and was now his workshop. The view showed a dozen prototype vessels orbiting the Void Walker, each incorporating revolutionary designs he and the ship had developed together. Orla worked beside him, fully revived and surprisingly unbothered by the 7th century nap. She adjusted the holographic display, her cybernetic implants glowing softly. The quantum entanglement drive is stable, she said, her accent musical. Your modifications to the containment field are crude but effective. I'll take that as a compliment, Alexander replied, grinning. It was an observation, but her lips quirked in what might have been a smile. The Void Walker had changed everything. Within weeks of accepting administrative control, Alexander discovered the ship wasn't just advanced. It was a mobile factory, a research station, and a forge of technologies the galaxy had forgotten. The Veltari hadn't just built ships. They'd grown them using quantum biological matrices that could adapt and evolve. With Orla's knowledge and the Void Walker's capabilities, Alexander began creating vessels unlike anything seen since the collapse. Ships that could repair themselves, engines that bent spacetime without exotic matter, shields that existed in quantum superposition, making them nearly impenetrable. Word spread quickly. The first visitors were curious traders. Then came corporate representatives with contracts and threats. Finally, the hegemon, the galaxy's self-appointed military power, sent a battle group. Admiral Chen's face filled the communication screen, her expression carved from stone. "Mr. Kane, you are operating unlicensed Veltari technology in hegemon space. Power down your vessel and prepare for seizure." Alexander glanced at Orla, who stood with arms crossed, her expression unreadable. The Void Walker's consciousness hummed in the back of his mind, not controlling him, never that, but present, aware. "Admiral, with respect, this ship chose me. It's not property to be seized." "Chose you?" Chen's laugh was bitter. "Technology doesn't choose, it's owned. You have 1 hour to comply." The channel closed. "They'll destroy us rather than let us go," Orla said quietly. "The hegemon fears what they cannot control. My people learned that lesson." Alexander studied the tactical display. 12 warships, each outgunning the Void Walker 100 times over. Conventional wisdom said they were dead. But Alexander had stopped thinking conventionally months ago. Void Walker, status on Project Cascade. 97% complete. Warning, untested technology. Probability of catastrophic failure. "I don't want to hear it. Orla, I need you on neural integration. We're going to show them what a real Veltari ship can do." What happened next will be debated by military historians for generations. The Void Walker didn't fire weapons. It didn't need to. Instead, it broadcast a signal across every frequency simultaneously, a quantum-encoded data package that infiltrated every ship in the hegemon battle group within nanoseconds. Admiral Chen watched in horror as her tactical displays went haywire, not crashing, transforming. Every ship's AI began receiving updates, modifications to their core programming that they couldn't refuse because the code existed in quantum superposition until observed. Schrödinger's virus. The modification was simple. Recognize the Void Walker as a sovereign entity. Cease all hostile action. Share defensive technology with all vessels in the network. In 3 seconds, Alexander had created a hive-mind defense network with the hegemon's own fleet. And then he released control. The ship's AIs found themselves upgraded but autonomous, aware but free. Chen's weapons came back online, but her targeting systems refused to lock onto the Void Walker. Her shield generators had tripled in efficiency, integrated with Veltari quantum matrices. Alexander opened the channel. "Admiral, I've just given you and every ship in your fleet technology that will save thousands of lives. Not as subjects, as partners. The Void Walker doesn't conquer, it shares. That's what the Veltari understood before fear destroyed them." He paused, meeting her shocked gaze. "Tell the hegemon that humanity has a choice. Evolve together or stagnate alone. We're heading to the neutral zones. Any who want to learn are welcome." The battle group didn't fire, couldn't fire. Not because they were controlled, but because Alexander had given them something more powerful than weapons. Hope that technology could unite rather than divide. 6 months later, the neutral zones had become the new synthesis. A coalition of free ships and stations built on Veltari principles, but adapted for a dozen species. Alexander and Orla stood on the Void Walker's bridge, watching a fleet of hybrid vessels, organic and mechanical, human and alien, patrol the borders. "You realize you've started a revolution," Orla said. Alexander shrugged. The ship started it. I just said yes. The ship chose well. She placed her hand on the console, her implants glowing. The Void Walker hummed contentedly. My people tried to keep our knowledge secret. It destroyed us. You're giving it away, building an empire of equals. Not an empire, a synthesis, he smiled. Someone very wise was in stasis for that word, I think. Orla laughed, the first time he'd heard that sound. It was beautiful. Below them, construction drones assembled another ship. This one designed by a Thraxian engineer using principles Alexander had open-sourced. In the distance, a human colony ship, upgraded with self-repair matrices, prepared for a journey to an uncharted system. The galaxy was changing, not through conquest or force, but through shared evolution. And at the center of it all, an abandoned starship that had chosen a desperate human salvager, and together they'd built something that shook the foundations of power itself. Not an empire. A future. The end.